Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Morning Magazine for this April 1st, 2020. Have your host, James J. Malouf, here today, and we are joined by Sheriff Shawn Becker from the Wood County Sheriff's Department. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here, James.
Appreciate having you with us. I want to mention also that we have Kevin with us from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. I didn't even get a chance to say hi to Kevin. Hey, good man. Good to see you, man. Thanks a lot for being here today. We appreciate both of you being in studio with us. Especially, we're all keeping the social distancing in check, and we're all trying to keep that in mind. And at the same time, we are trying to balance that with showing some camaraderie and from time to time being able to have people in studio. So appreciate both of you being here and being able to do that.
I called in just to make sure that I could come in, and I'd prefer to be here than calling in. So I'm glad that I got the opportunity to come here and be on the show.
When it comes first, before we dive into anything else, how are you and yours doing? How your family? Everybody okay?
Good. No, thanks for bringing that up. Just like anybody else, there's a lot of concern out there for your family. My dad's down in Florida, that area, so I check in with him often. And it's a little different with Florida, not to get off on a tangent here to talk about what's going on in Wisconsin and compared to Florida. We're at that stay-at-home type situation, and I completely agree with that. Where Florida doesn't seem to be like that, and what concerns me is, I do have my dad down there, and he's doing the right things, but you see on the media that other people aren't. It's just a little different there.
Yeah.
I know all the restaurants and taverns and everything are closed down there, but it's still kind of an open state, and I know he's concerned. Just seeing people coming in, from other states, and it's just not being taken as serious as it should be. But he's staying home. He lives in a gated community. Still has the opportunity to golf, so he's getting out a little bit. But there's a lot of precautions on where he lives right now. But my family, again, my wife Julie, both daughters, Caitlin and Jordan. Caitlin's down in Madison, so a little bit different area than here, a little bit more populated. We can talk about that later and what is facing down in the Madison area. Just speaking with the other sheriffs throughout the state, we do talk periodically on conference calls just so we can compare what's going on and what resources we can share.
That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
We had Chris Steins on with us earlier from Aspire's Riverview Hospital Clinics, and a president over there. And that was one of my big questions for him, and kind of one that I wanted to ask you too. Is that you're finding that you guys are communicating even more? I know that for you've been very clear about that before, that you talk with a lot of different departments in the area. I imagine right now the phones have been even more so.
Well, the conference calls, pretty much every day we've got multiple calls going on, and I'm glad you brought that up, James, because once the pandemic was once our governor issued the orders, then the stay-at-home things, we had been meeting with all the leaders within the county. And again, to bring up what you just brought up with Chris and Riverview, Aspirus, they're a big part of it. Same with Marshfield Medical Center. What they're doing, I'll be honest, they're the true heroes right now.
Yeah.
Our medical professionals from top to bottom that's our line of defense. They're taking care of folks that are feeling sick, whether they have the virus or not. Things are 24/7 for them, and they need to be appreciated more and more. If you look at the big scope of things and the shortages of equipment that's going on throughout the country, that's the priority. And we're secondary as far as law enforcement, first responders. But hearing Aspirus and Marshfield Medical Center, those folks that are still coming to us, and what do you need? Aspirus mentioned, how are you guys on mass? And fortunately, we've had a few people in the community donate some stuff to us that has helped us out. But that just getting the mask and the PPEs donate to us, well, you got to take it a step further, because to wear those, you have to go through training, making sure that they fit. Otherwise, really, do they work?
Right. Yeah. What's the point of putting it on if it's not put on right?
Yeah. And I'm clean shaven now because if I need to put a mask on, there'll be a seal there. But there's some.
I was going to ask. It was going to come up eventually. I was going to ask.
My wife's pretty happy that I got rid of the beard and goatee. But if you have to look at the big scope of things, we're going to be coming in contact with people that could be affected, or they are. and we'll have to deal with that.
I was a little concerned at first because I was like, "You're way too young to be a sheriff." I mean, you really do look like 10 years younger, man. It really does.
I appreciate hearing that, but I do miss the beard.
I don't know what you mean.
I want to make it very clear after we get through the pandemic here and the all clears, given to us, I will have it back. My wife won't be happy, but you know what? Hey, it is what it is. But I appreciate the compliment.
I appreciate what you said about our medical field right now because I'm one of those people. I've never liked using the word war unless it's an actual war. I don't like referring to a football game as a war and that kind of thing. But make no mistake, right now there is a war going on with this an invisible opponent in this virus, and our medical field is on the front lines as the first line of defense that we have for this. But also with that, and all credit and thanks to them for that, certainly. We have others that are in the line of fire when it comes to whether it is our people delivering the mail, our mail servers, or people working at a front desk at a gas station, or you and your staff. Whether it's our police department, our sheriff's department, our fire department, all of you all are also on that line. Yeah. What are some of the things that you guys have been doing to prepare for something that you're not really trained for necessarily?
This is something that is new to all of us. No matter how old you are, this is something that we haven't gone through. And as we already alluded to, the first thing you have to look at is that collaborative effort. Nobody's in this alone. And that starts from all your political leaders, from, first responders, your hospitals, all your department heads within the, Wood County or cities or municipalities. Everybody has to, move forward with this in a collaborative effort. And I think where we can be better, as far as what the sheriff's department did and all law enforcement did, we had to change our approach to some things, non-essential, non-emergency calls. We're telling people to call in. You can still report, either a theft complaint or a minor complaint to law enforcement, but you'll most likely have to do that over the phone. Mm-hmm. And I think people understand that we want to limit our, human contact right now. We're still move forward with what we do as an organization, but we had to have, put some limitations out there. So we want to limit, as much contact as we have with people. And, that's hard to do, especially, in law enforcement where we want to be out in the community. We want people to see us, but under the circumstances, that change had to happen. And that's going on, everywhere. That isn't just with the Wood County Sheriff's Department. Another thing, like with the collaborative effort on moving forward, as far as your law enforcement community in Wood County, we've taken a step further where we meet now, not face to face, but we're meeting weekly and decide, hey, what are the things that we need to be doing collaboratively as we move forward with this? What are the what ifs? What's going to happen if one of our organizations, all the officers are sick? How are we going to cover that? That's where I've got to throw out. We had a couple ideas. Do the sheriff's department, do we deputize all the law enforcement full time within the county? All right, that might make it easier than a Rapids officer can go out in the county and help us out, or be assigned to an area if we don't have enough people working. We worked through that with our corp counsel, Peter Castnotes, and I got to give a huge shout out because Peter's been asked a lot of questions from us and along with other people too, from our health departments who come from in where the enforcement thing comes, into play with all of this. So Peter's done an outstanding job. We put together a mutual aid agreement. We're working with all the other municipalities. So if we get to that point where one of the agencies or few of the agencies within the county can't cover, whether it's patrol or another function within their organization, we can help. The sheriff's department is pretty unique because we have jurisdiction throughout the entire county. Yeah. But other police departments don't, unless we ask them to. So we put together a mutual aid agreement that seemed to be a little bit more cleaner than deputizing everybody. So as we move forward, what we're doing is we're discussing, all right, if we have that issue of several of us being sick, working together, all right, how many law enforcement officers we need on a shift, a combined shift, and moving forward, and what kind of shift would be most ideal to provide the services to the people here in Wood County. And I know Wausau Police Department came out with something initially. They have a lot of officers, though, in compared to, Marshfield or Wisconsin Rapids, Nakusa, Port Edwards, Grand Rapids, or Pittsville. We'd almost have to combine all of our agencies to have the numbers that they do.
Yeah.
So I know Nakusa already went to a different schedule where officers are working longer shifts, more days, but then they have more time off. So if they would get exposed, they're kind of in that quarantine or that they're monitoring themselves at home and then coming back to work. And that's kind of what a lot of departments are doing in the state that can provide that coverage. So getting back to, we're meeting, we're talking about, what we can do together. And, that's really important, that collaborative approach that goes not only with our law enforcement folks, but our fire, our EMS, and just communicating the needs for each organization, how we could serve our people here in Wood County.
Any chance we are able to kind of reassure people, I think that's always a good thing. And that I feel a lot of reassurance from that, and I'm sure a lot of our audience does. Shawn, if you wouldn't mind pulling your mic in a little bit like this.
Sure.
I'm just having trouble getting your volume up, and I want to make sure people hear you.
Sure.
And especially because with some of the things that you're touching on here. So, for somebody like me who has always, since I was a little kid, had this little dream of robbing a train. Now is not a good time. You guys are still on case. You guys are still on point.
We're still out and about. The deputies and all of our law enforcement folks nothing stopped as far as, what we're doing. We're still, like I said, visible out in the community. Like I said, there's some certain things we want to limit our face-to-face contacts with folks for like the non-emergency type calls to service, but we're still out there. We did change some things with our jail. We had a big issue about a month ago with our jail. Our capacities here in Wood County is 132 inmates, and then we house 100 out. And we had 131 in about a month ago, and that's a big problem, right? Because then it limited us to, who we can take in at that time, and we had to really look at some ways to lower inmate population, and we're talking about housing another 20 people in Wapaka, and we've already talked about costs and what's going on with our jail. So in the midst of that, then the pandemic hit, and then there was some different requirements and things that we need to look at really strongly, and we sat down with our judges, our DA's office, and looked at how we could lower inmate population and still keep the community safe. So what we did is we looked at people that were in custody on bonds, nonviolent bonds, nonviolent crimes, and expanded our EMP program so we can get our inmate population down to under 100. And the reason being for that is we had to prepare if people came in that had symptoms or had the virus. What do you do with them? You cannot put them in with the general inmate population. You need to isolate them, so we need to have room in our facility to put people that either have the virus or are showing symptoms. Then we change some procedures where if somebody does come to jail, our correction staff will go out in our Sally Port, go through a pre-screen, talk about medical questions, take a temperature, and if there's anything that shows that this person could be sick, they still are going to come to jail, but we're going to get them medically cleared. But then we get an opportunity to prepare to put that person in isolation, either a holding cell, watch them, and then get them into a cell block as we move forward. So far, we had one inmate that presented some symptoms and kind of claimed that he could have the virus. So we had to go through our protocol and get him tested, and he was not positive. We didn't think he was, but we still have to go through that type of a protocol. But we're prepared right now. Again, I really have to thank our Wood County judges, our DA's office to work with us so we can expand that EMP program, the electronic monitoring program for nonviolent offenders that qualify for that program that could get out. We also took a really hard look at certain arrest warrants that are out there. There's failure to pay warrants that are out there, so folks that don't pay their citations, whether it's a speeding ticket or something along those lines, if you don't pay it within 60 days, a warrant's issued for your arrest. And we really look at that and looked hard at that. Is that something that we need to do right now, especially? So all those warrants right now, if somebody has one that's in the system, it'll get canceled, and then reissued at a later time. Or we're going to discuss that. Is it appropriate to have those individuals in custody?
Mm-hmm. And those are, I really, it's one of these things that every time we talk, no matter how many times we do, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the transparency, but also the kind of behind the curtain look that we get sometimes to some of this stuff. It is really helpful for people, especially at times like this, where we, everybody has gray area, has questions. You kind of really cover a lot of that. We're going to take a phone call real quick here, and want to make sure. I think those should work. One of those should work for you. Yeah. Let's see here. Good morning. Do you have a question for Sheriff Becker?
Well, not necessarily a question. I just wanted to say that I love the comments, what's going on, you guys. But you know what? I can't barely hear you all here in Radio Land. Can, sir, but I cannot.
Thank you for that. And your radio on in the background there was a little loud, so I could barely hear you for a second there, sir. But I did hear you. And yeah, Shawn, it's just talking into the mic a little bit like this and stuff. Yeah, it's one of those things. We're all learning here. We're all kind of,
I'm still learning.
It's not just with the virus. It's with some other things too.
Right.
I made the bad joke earlier about the train rob and all this stuff because one thing I want to touch on is how much we appreciate the presence. You and I have talked about this before, where in this day and age, one of the things that I wanted to do with this, these interviews is reminding people that you guys are citizens, that you're human, that you're part of the community and affected by things just as much as we are, just in different ways sometimes maybe. When it came to a subject like this, you guys were some of the first people I thought of, because there's no doing your job from home. There's no and for anything that anybody, because it's low hanging fruit to rip on a police department or a sheriff's department or something like that. Every comedian in the world has a joke like that or something. But boy, you don't want to know what a society is like without that presence, because it's not just about the idea of pulling people over or stopping people when they're committing a crime or something. It's when it's the driving down the road and you see a squad car parked on the side and it puts you in check, or these kind of things. Even if you're not thinking about it, instinctively you do this. You slow down or something if you're going too fast, or these things, which are all just as important as keeping the line between us and the lawbreakers, the criminals, in check.
Right.
So when it comes to balancing that right now, your staff, you guys are close. These aren't just employees or coworkers to you. They're family members.
Right.
You have to balance our needs as a society, as a county, with that. And how is that going for you guys?
Good. Good point. The law enforcement family is huge, and it doesn't go just between the people that are wearing, the uniform or the badge. It's their family too. And that brings up something that I brought up. The real heroes right now are the folks that are in the medical field. And we have a lot of spouses that do work in the medical field. And, I'd mentioned that to our staff that, they're heroes every day going in and helping people, not just are affected by the virus, but other, healthcare needs that are out there. Not everything's on hold. You still have to provide, a service to people that need it, emergency services or, something along. Obviously, the elected things are being put on hold right now, but, people still need that. And a lot of people are employed in the medical field. And from top to bottom to top, those are people right now that mean the most to us, and, a really big shout out to the employees that have spouses that, go to work every day, no matter what shift they're on, providing, help for people that are suffering.
When it comes to the stay-at-home order that was put in place by Governor Evers, is this one of those things that you guys have found locally that you've had to enforce, or how do you enforce something like that?
Right now, that's a great question because I wanted to bring it up. We're looking for voluntary compliance. This is a huge change for us. And I do support the stay-at-home, or we do as an organization, because we have an opportunity to control how many more people are going to get sick or potentially pass. All right, so, and that's on us as people that we have an opportunity to do that. And I know that's a huge change. It's frustrating. School ended. Lots of, just with school, all the programs ended, everything, and that's hard. I feel terrible for kids that are in school. It's their senior year, and then it's done. I mean, you can't do anything. You can't even have a party yet, and maybe later in the summer you can. But with that, people have to understand why that is. And I think most people do, but we still are struggling with some people that just, they want to get out. We're social people, but you have to understand the gravity of the situation where we can prevent people from getting sick or worse. So we've got a few complaints, not a lot, but going back to, collaborating with, other, sheriff's department and law enforcement agencies. We're seeing throughout the state where, some taverns, not picking on taverns, because, one of the things that we reached out to is the Wood County Tavern League the day that the order came down and said that, this is 5 o'clock, everybody has to shut down, and very, very supportive of the leaders in the Tavern League. And, but just going back to people want to go out and sit down, have a beer or something and talk. And that's hard. And I think a few people struggle with that. But right now, as far as complaints that have been generated, 4 or 5. And right now we've handled them with an education piece. I mean, the information has been out there long enough for people should know, especially if you own a business that's deemed not essential. You should know you have to be closed right now. And that's hard because that's their livelihood. That's something that they depend on, that socialization for income. And it's just that's a very hard situation. And we don't want to have to write people tickets for this, or potentially refer charges to our DA's office or arrest them. We don't want to, but we do have the authority to do that. And we're hoping that it just stays at this voluntary level, that people will comply. There's still some things that you can do to get out there, go for walks. You can still get out. It's springtime, the weather's getting better, and you do see people out there. But, it hasn't got to a point where we had to take some enforcement action, but it could happen. The longer this goes, that potential is out there. And again, we have the authority to do that. Again, we don't want to, but we have to look, and people have to understand the big scope of things. The orders are out there for a reason. And it's to protect us. Right. And the health department has a lot of authority right now on making those decisions. We have to enforce them.
Whether you believe in this virus or not, the virus believes in you.
Yes.
The virus is it doesn't care if you believe in it or not. It's one of those things, and it is another thing that yes, certain parts of the population are a little more vulnerable than others, but don't mistake, we are all vulnerable to this. Right. And if we don't do this now, we're going to have to do it down the line eventually anyway, as far as self staying at home and those sorts of things. So I think we can all agree that we'd rather get it out of the way now than later on. And especially, most importantly, we don't want more casualties. We don't want more people getting sick. And there's a responsibility. You hit on it perfectly, I thought, and it was very well worded. We have a responsibility as people. Whether we are sick or not, we don't know. And we have a responsibility to keep the other people in check, or keep the rest of people healthy as we can, especially our most vulnerable in society. Yeah. And it's one of those things too, where again, the wording was right, where the volunteering, us as citizens, there's not a lot we can do to help our medical field, to help you guys, to help our people out there on the front lines that are doing the hard work right now. One of the things we can do is keeping ourselves in check. I'm an introvert, and even I want to get outside. Even I miss people. But it's one of those things where just looking at the long game here. And looking at having some patience. Maybe this year our team has to, tank, but we'll have a first-round pick coming to us. I mean, just whatever metaphor you need, just hang in there right now and keep this in mind.
And it's not to scare everybody. There's influenza. There's a lot of things out there, but this is a pandemic. All right. That should be obviously alarming. There are some, good things that are happening throughout this, where people are taking care of each other and things like that. But don't overlook the fact that this is a serious thing, right? But a lot of people are coming together to work together from all levels of government. We just have to work to get through this. And hopefully by the end of the month, we'll have some restrictions lifted. But if we don't, all right, then we're going to keep moving forward. People need to be patient and listen to the orders that come out. Again, we don't want to have to enforce any of these orders that come out from, our governor. We don't want to, but we have the authority to. And people really need to take a look at, do I need to leave the house for this? Is this item that I'm going to go to one of the stores that are open? Is it worth it to go?
Yeah.
All right, because you walk into one of the stores that are open right now, and there's a lot of people in there, and then it really makes you question: did you have to do this? I mean, we need to take it serious, all right, and move forward with what's essential, what's not essential, and go from there. I mean, we have an opportunity here to stop something, or at least to have some level of control of it, and that's important.
One of the things that I thought about when this first came about, and taking some of the calls that I did off air and on air, and I'm going somewhere with this, so hang with me. But the English language is the toughest language in the world to learn, and part of it is because we have words like "cool" that can mean, "Hey man, you look really cool today," or "Hey, it's cool outside." Double meanings. Now we're able to have that thought in our head. We can keep two thoughts in our head at once. So I would like to think, in overall, and the people that are having trouble with this get better at it or work at it, that you can have the thought that we have to take this seriously and we have to make sacrifices, and we also don't have to hit the streets with pitchforks and robbing people for their hand sanitizer. There's a balance there. You can have two thoughts in your head at once and take this seriously, and also not lose your cool. Not keep yourself, and as well as as best you can, your mind in check, and these kind of things. Mm-hmm. We're speaking with Wood County Sheriff Department's Sheriff Shawn Becker right now, and again, a big happy hello to Kevin from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, who we appreciate being in with us. We're going to take a short break, but I want to remind you that the call lines are open, 424-2600. If you have a question for Sheriff Becker, we encourage you to call up to The Morning Magazine, AM 1320, WFHR. We have Morning Magazine. We are joined by Wood County, Wisconsin Rapids Community Media's Kevin, and we, of course, had Wood County Sheriff's Department's Shawn Becker in with us, and I appreciate both of you joining us. Again, thanks a lot, Shawn. Remind everybody out there that the phone lines are wide open. 424-2600 is the number to call if you have a question for Sheriff Becker. Back on the 19th, we got a release from you guys about some temporary changes to the Sheriff's Department. We've been able to touch a little bit on that throughout the conversation. I wouldn't mind, especially having you in studio with us. Is there any parts of this, because we've kind of gone over it with our audience a number of times, but are there any parts of this that you would like to go over, since you have a chance to kind of put your own spin on it, or talk about any of these?
Yeah, the biggest thing it brought up is just, the calls of service that we respond to, not the non-emergency stuff. We're going to probably handle by phone, but obviously there's an emergency, we're going to go. And furthermore, I don't want anybody to think that our jail's closed. It's not closed.
Yeah.
We have, talked with, as I mentioned, all the other law enforcement agencies within the county, and, we're moving forward with, hey, if you have somebody that commits a crime of violent offense, a domestic, by all means, they need to come to jail. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we can utilize some other ways. If you don't want to bring somebody to jail, you can refer charges to our district attorney's office. So people are doing that because we do want to limit the in and out of our jail as much as possible. However, we're not closed. I want to make that very, very clear. But yeah, we had to make those changes that we put a press release out on that we're, our civil process has changed a bit. A lot of the things that we're doing with our civil process, Sergeant Sam Klum is by mail or phone calls, things like that. But you have to look at the whole courthouse. A lot of court appearances and things of that nature have been moved. And again, talking to, that part of our courthouse, our judges are in our, the judges and everybody else up on that third floor, looking at their schedules and putting things off to after June, and then we'll have to reevaluate it sometime in May, but we have to limit all the traffic in and out of the courthouse. And a lot of the people in our courthouse, all of our departments in there, have taken a look at, either closing, and doing a lot of, appointments. You can call in, make an appointment, and come in. And our foot traffic in the courthouse has changed for that, and we're very grateful that, for that. Before we were getting 400 plus people a day coming into our courthouse. Now it's down to about a quarter of that, and we have to decide as we move forward with this, is it something that we need to be open, the courthouse? And as of right now we are, but I suggest to everybody that if you're going to the clerk's office, the clerk of court's office, or register of deeds or you have some sort of business potentially at the courthouse, to call first, or check them out online, because a lot of the stuff that you're looking for, you might be able to accommodate that by just checking online or calling, and then you could make an appointment. But there are some of our departments that are still open there, but we're trying to limit the courthouse traffic as much as possible. We do know that there are some things we have to stay open for, such as like restraining orders, some certain court appearances we still are doing, but a lot of that has been limited as well. Those are probably the biggest things. All of our traffic court has been moved to, like I had mentioned, after June. So if you do get a citation, hopefully you don't, but if you do, it'll be sometime in after June. If you had a court appearance from like now until June, you should have been notified that that was changed till after June. Everybody, any citations that were issued before the pandemic started, those court dates have been changed now. So that's another thing, just a reminder out there. But a lot of the, like I said, calls are a big thing that I want people to realize right now, that non-emergency calls most likely will be handled over the phone. And that'll change once we get through this.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to mention too, and it came up from a listener off air that didn't know that this was something that you guys did, and I always like to be able to shine a light on these kind of things. You had in here that deputies will respond to residents for Project Lifesaver battery changes.
Yeah.
What is that exactly, and how is that been affected?
Yeah, well, a few months ago, we've got a lot of clients that are on Project Lifesaver. It's a bracelet with GPS, capabilities on it, and it's for special needs people, children that have autism, or elderly folks that might have dementia, that have a history of wandering. It gives us an opportunity to find them pretty quickly. It's a program that we've had for several years. And we've got quite a few people on the program. Sarah McCormick has been managing the program for many years. Has done an outstanding job just working together with so many other folks from human services, our fire departments, our Wood County Rescue, and law enforcement agencies, because it's a pretty big group effort for that program to be successful. Well, a few months ago we had so many people on there, and the sheriff's department had to go out to residences and change batteries, and just for maintenance. And the sheriff's department was doing that, and we decided, well, why don't we have the folks that are on the program bring their loved one into us, come to either the courthouse, the sheriff's department, or Marshfield Fire Department, places that were recognizable for them to come in. That was a hard change for the folks in the program, but it was just, there's so many people on it, it was hard for us to keep up. Well, with the pandemic, we decided, we're going to go out and we have to make sure this program is continuing, and people are getting the maintenance and the battery changes. So we took that back on ourselves. So we're out doing the battery changes and maintenance on the GPS units that the folks that are part of the program are utilizing. So we'll see after the pandemic how that's going to go. Our preference is to go to them, but when you have a lot of people on the program, it's hard to do sometimes.
Yeah. If people have follow-up questions about the program and they want to know about it, what number can they reach out to?
Just call the sheriff's department. We've got some information that we can let you know by phone, or feel free to email us. Like I said, Sarah's done an outstanding job with that program. You can also call Human Services as well, because that's a strong partnership that we've established with them as well. But the information's out there. Just give us a call. If you have somebody that you feel would be a good part of that program, by all means, give us we're totally fine with expanding it. We just ran into, a little bit of an issue of making sure we got enough people to get to the residences. We're just struggling with that. But there's ways that we can adapt to that after we get through this pandemic.
And it's one of the cooler programs that I've heard of any place, and it's something that I've known about for a while, just doing my homework on you guys. But for those out there that haven't known about it, I wanted to make sure to bring a light to it, especially for anybody that might need it. Yeah. But that certainly that the program is still going on, and that we're doing our best to keep these people keep an eye in that. It's. I have no segue for this, but it's something that I really wanted to get into with you because, in part, because I know that you and I are like-minded when it comes to this, and I think we need more men that are like-minded in this scenario. And it was great to see you and the boys at the Men in the Kitchen event for the Family Center a little while ago, when we are actually able to have public meetings. Boy, doesn't it feel like ages ago now?
It does,
kind of does. But it was a great event, and it was really good to see you guys there, and the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department, and so many other great organizations. One of the fears and one of the things that I have been seeing nationally is an uptick in domestic violence and that sort of thing. And I'm not asking for details necessarily locally, but knowing that we are like-minded about that subject and how we feel about that, is that something that you have been in the back of your mind worried about, or is that something that you've had to address more than usual, or that?
Not so much. We haven't seen a major uptick with domestic violence or mental health calls of service. But it's something that we've discussed. When you're under the stay-at-home order, that's when you have limited opportunities to do anything, and the lack of socialization in your home. That's a strong possibility, and locally we haven't seen a big uptick in those types of calls to service, those types of incidents, but we're prepared for them. My fear is, especially on the crisis end of things, is when the uptick of those calls of service, when people are struggling, at home because they either can't get some of the things that they want, or they're just missing that socialization piece, or whether it's an appointment or something, and getting upset about it. I haven't heard that there's been a lot of additional crisis calls, but I wouldn't be surprised. And as far as domestic violence calls of service, there's been a few, but it's just something that we're definitely aware of. And again, that comes down to those types of situations that if we get called to it, those are mandatory arrest situations if a crime was committed, and people will go to jail under those circumstances. So it's definitely something that we're aware of. As of right now, we haven't seen a big increase of those types of calls to service.
When, again, something that we've talked about before, how important is it for people to hold other people accountable, hold your neighbors accountable, hold these kind of things? When you know that something like that is going on in a household, of dropping a dime, of letting you guys know about it. How key is it to you guys being able to know those kind of things? Like, I'm sure there isn't a percentage necessarily on it, but I imagine that there are times where it isn't the person who's being abused calling you; it's somebody letting you know that this is going on or something like that. So to the people like that out there, it's a key part of this that you speak up. There's none of this. I don't want to snitch or that kind of thing. Right. No, that doesn't. We can't have that anymore in society. That stuff doesn't exist anymore. You have to own up to this stuff. You have to, if you see something going on, talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. And when you've seen a domestic violence type situation, those are immediate calls to service. You can't, let that go. And that can be hard, if you're a friend or a neighbor or and just a passerby, that those are calls of service that are important to be reported to law enforcement, because you don't want them to get worse. And that seems to happen in certain situations where the lack of law enforcement contact, and then things just build up and build up and build up and could get worse. So law enforcement intervention is essential in those types of calls of service. It's really important that we get to that situation. It's not that we arrest everybody every time. Again, there are mandatory arrest situations. If we determine that probable cause exists, a crime was committed, we have to. But there's some situations where it might not have risen to that, where there isn't any physical violence. It was a verbal altercation, and we can come in and still help out and maybe provide some services for the people involved.
We're speaking with Wood County Sheriff's Department's Sheriff Shawn Becker here, and of course, a big shout out to Wisconsin Rapids Community Media and Kevin for being here with us. We're going to take our final break real quick, and when we come back, we will wrap things up on Morning Magazine, AM 1320, WFHR. You're one of the funnier guests we have. And
Really?
I feel
Is
so
that a
bad.
good or bad thing?
I feel so bad because you don't get a chance to be funny very often. I want to give you more opportunities to do that. We'll have to do a one-night stand sometime.
I don't know, James, if I think you'd be picking on me more than I'd be picking on you.
It is 36 in Stevens Point, 41 in Marshfield, 39 in Owasso, and 38 here in Wisconsin Rapids. We have Wood County Sheriff's Department's Sheriff Shawn Becker with us. And I wanted to touch on pedestrians.
Yeah. We had a tragedy on Monday. We had a fatal car accident up on the north part of our county, just outside of Marshfield on County Road Y near Galvin Avenue. A pedestrian was hit and unfortunately killed. So we're still investigating that tragedy. The State Patrol came out and helped us out there, helping us with the reconstruction. Marshfield Police Department also helped us, but again, I can't comment on the specifics on it because we still have an ongoing investigation. But just a reminder to folks out there, with what's going on, and then the encouragement to, for folks to get outside, go for walks, ride your bike. It's just a good reminder of people, whether you're a pedestrian, a bicyclist, or you're driving a motor vehicle, remember the rules of the road and just be aware of other people out there. Share the road with other people, and slow down when you're in residential neighborhoods. And just that awareness piece is huge. And again, follow the rules of the road. If you're walking, walk against traffic. If you're biking, bike with traffic. And if you're driving, yield to pedestrians, yield to bicyclists. Just make it a safer environment for everybody, because you're going to see more and more people out. The weather is getting nicer, and that's just, people are encouraged to do that. I mean, you only can be in your house so long. And we were just joking, I can go home later this afternoon and do yard work. Well, that's not a bad thing either. No. I mean, it's that time of year where you get out the opportunity to do that and just be outside. If this would have happened a few months ago, we'd be very limited. Yeah. At least we can be outside. But just a reminder to be safe when you're operating a motor vehicle, you're walking, you're running, jogging. Just the limitations on, you can't even go to the gym right now. Yeah. And that really bothers me.
Me too. I'm with you on that. Yeah, that's frustrating.
We can get out and go for walks, but it's like,
I've been really working the push-ups and sit-ups and everything. I've been working hard on those just to kind of keep a little bit of a routine going.
Yeah, it's something. But that's stressful for everybody. Mm-hmm. But that's why you're going to see more and more, people out just walking, just to take a walk. That's what we're encouraging them to do. But make it safe. We don't want to have the tragedies that we just had on Monday. That it's hard.
It's interesting you bring this up, because one of the things we've been going over again is some stuff that we learned as kids about washing our hands, and these lessons that we learned as kids, and as we've gotten older, maybe pulled away from a little bit and everything. Well, one of the earliest things we learned as children is look both ways. Yeah. I mean, things like that are stuff to keep in mind with this. It may sound a little silly, but it's true. It's something that you got to keep in mind with this. And especially the same thing for drivers. Looking all ways, looking around, and you touched on a really good point there. There are too many people that I see all the time, going 40 in a 25 in a residential area where they know there are kids in that neighborhood, and that there ain't nowhere you have to be. Be late. It's better,
especially now.
Come on.
And we're still going to be out. All law enforcement agents are still going to be working traffic enforcement. So just be aware of that. But we just want to avoid the tragedies. You look at younger children, like you brought up. That sense of fear isn't there. We try to teach them as much as possible, but we've all responded to, unfortunately, tragedies like that when you have a younger person that has been hurt or worse. And those things can be avoided. If you're going to be on the bike, make sure you've got a helmet on. Just be safe. Make sure the equipment that you're riding is working. And just have that conversation with your kids when they're home. All right, if you're going to go for a bike ride, all right, get the helmet on, talk about the rules of the road and all right, where are you going? And as a driver, what's the biggest thing that has been going on? It's just as a driver, phone. Stay off your phone, while you're driving. That's inattentive driving, and you don't want to be responsible for a tragedy.
And this is, for me, my mother's Jewish guilt is like a tragedy. It's heavy, but even I won't pick up the phone or look at my phone when she's calling and I'm driving. I'll take the guilt. I'll take it, because it's one of those things we have to do. It's one of those things that whatever that text, that call, whatever is coming in, it can wait. It can
Right.
wait. It's not that far of a drive wherever you're going, especially usually, and like you mentioned, especially right now, chances are you're not going anywhere too far.
Right.
So, it'll wait. It can be there. Now, Sheriff Becker, before we let you go, we got about 4 or 5 minutes left here. Is there anything you wanted to touch on we didn't get a chance to?
Again, just a socialization, thing going on right now, creating that social distance. If there's something that's non-essential that you don't need to leave your residence for, don't. We really have to do a better job of maintaining a distance between us. We really have a lot of control over of what happens here, especially in central Wisconsin, and how this virus spreads around the area. And I really feel that we could do a better job socializing as we move forward here. I understand that it's frustrating. It's not what we're used to, but look at the big picture. This will pass. Hopefully by, like I said, the end of the month, we'll get better news. That there'll be less restrictions out there. But it might go further. There's a lot of unknown out there, but we do have some level of control as people to try to make a difference here. That's probably one of the biggest things. And then thank you. Again, thank you to all the medical providers that go out every day to help take care of us. And we've had some people also come forward. There's no it's no secret that there's a shortage of the PPEs, the masks, and gloves, and things of that nature. And we understand that the medical professionals are the priority, and we do fall in line with that. And we've had people come forward with giving us hundreds of masks. Bridget and Doug Miller recently over the weekend just reached out to me and say, we've got stuff that you guys should be able to utilize and make sure that you as a sheriff's department get it. Over close to 200 masks, and then, most recently Nancy Powell, she used to be one of our humane officers here for Wood County, gave us a bunch of masks and, hand gloves and people with, hand sanitizer. Just, I'm really proud to say that, the community is still there thinking of us, and we really, really appreciate that. But again, look at the big heroes here right now are the medical professionals.
Well, and you guys are right there with them, and we appreciate it. It's not one of those things where thankfully we don't have to do an Olympics thing here and give the gold to certain people and you guys the silver, that kind of thing. We have enough appreciation in us for all of you, and we appreciate what you guys are doing too, because. Watch a Western, gang. You don't want it, the Wild West right now. You don't want that kind of thing. We need you guys. We need you now more than ever, maybe in some ways, and appreciate what you guys are doing, putting yourselves and your livelihoods out there as you do. As you do every day as it is already. It's part of the job as it goes. This added on top of it is a whole different thing that. I never like to use the term I didn't sign up for this or something like that, but you couldn't have seen something like this coming. So we appreciate what you guys are doing as well.
We're working together, and I could probably end by saying, thank you to our staff, from our corrections staff, to patrol investigators or front office, everybody working together. We're very concerned about them too. We're not forgetting about what they do every day and coming to work and putting on this uniform through some uncertain times.
I want to thank you for the time, Sheriff, and thank you for being in studio with us. I want to thank Kevin from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media for being here, as always. Wisconsin Rapids Community Media doing some amazing work over there. And as you guys are. We look forward to talking again real soon, and we're going to have to do a baseball card show one of these
I'm
days.
in.
It sounds good. We'll have to do that soon. Again, big thank you to you for being with us, sir. And just a quick reminder for people that if they have follow-up questions or anything like some of the things we talked about, how can they reach out to you guys?
Give us a call at the Sheriff's Department, 421-8715, and ask for me or somebody else that could answer the question for you.
Appreciate that. And thanks again for the time. You guys stay safe out there.
You too. Be healthy.
And again, a big thank you to the Wood County Sheriff's Department and Sheriff Shawn Becker, Wisconsin Rapids Community Media, and Kevin for being with us. Be sure to join us tomorrow for more Morning Magazine on AM 1320 WFHR.